Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Towers Take, brought to you by Marco's Pizza. Marco's Pizza, as you all know, here, America's #1 pizza company, and I hope you like the new digs I got. I finally got some decent stuff.
Hold on. Chip, what are you doing? This is my studio. What are you doing in my studio?
Brandon Adams, ladies and gentlemen.
What's up, Dog Nation?
Obviously, I'm in Atlanta today, and we've been doing some work together.
We have. We've been on a very special assignment that we can't really tell you about a whole lot yet, but we have
top secret.
Been on a special assignment here, top secret. But it is good to have you in Atlanta, Chip. We don't see a lot of you here in Atlanta. You're an Athens guy. You're right there on the beat with Georgia every single day.
I'm embedded.
Embedded
with the team.
And by the way,
not to be confused with in bed with the team. Which is
a very different way to get information, I guess. But nonetheless, a longtime fan, as they say on the old radio days. A long-time listener, first-time caller. I'm a Towers Take presented by Marco's Pizza watcher. And now I guess
I'm going to tell the truth. By then you've talked out. You just don't want to hear anything else by Georgia. By the time I'm talking about
when Towers Take presented by Marco's Pizza comes on, I am more than happy to allow somebody else to do the talk, and I'll do the listening for a while. Which is honestly what my wife, I do a whole lot more of around the house too.
I'm trying to get our comments called up here, and it'll only take me half the show, and then I'll get them going. There's lots of comments on here.
Yeah, do you mind if I kind of hang out and do a little Towers Take with you tonight?
Absolutely not.
This is a fun thing for me. This is a pretty good deal for me here. I'm excited about this.
Well, we are officially, I think we can say at this point, we are officially in the dog days of summer. So I mean. Everybody's pretty much adjourned. Everybody's on vacation. I went by the Zamir building the other day just to maybe say hello to Claude and talk to everybody. Echoes, everywhere. Yeah. I mean, everybody's on vacation. You're getting it in right now, except for Jeff Santel, of course. Now he's all over the opening.
Yeah, he's Frisco, Texas tomorrow. He's landing there for the opening, which is the big recruiting event of the summer. So Jeff's going to be kind of all over that. And I guess I'm kind of curious, and you probably know this better than anybody else, and I don't know what we were planning on talking about, but I do want to ask.
You mean you didn't make the pre-show meeting?
I do want to ask you about this. What does Kirby Smart do in the summer? I mean, I see him play golf from time to time. He seems to enjoy that. You think is he good at unwinding? Is he good at doing summer?
He's actually really good at that. I hope our Dog Nation listeners, readers, and watchers aren't surprised to know that I have my Kirby Smart watchers on all the time.
Sure,
I've got people out there who tell me what's going on. But no, it's funny. I just happened to have a friend who was in Florida just this past week, I think it was, or maybe it was this week. They run together and saw Kirby and his family in Alice Beach, Florida.
Is that right?
I'm sorry, Kirby, if I'm giving away a secret location. It's not necessarily a place that a lot of people go to. They were in a restaurant there. Hey, there's Kirby Smart over there, and he plays golf.
Yeah.
And it's funny. He's very intensely plays golf in a very small period of time. He's actually a very good golfer. Takes it very, very seriously.
Yeah, he's good. He's good.
Has a lake house down there on Lake Oconee. That's their general respite. It's about 45 minutes away. They pop down there, and he's also Athens Country Club member, and that's a exclusive club.
Yeah.
And I understand he hangs out at the pool there with
Mary
Beth, who he calls MB all the time.
Sure.
And, so yeah, I think he does a pretty good a job of getting away. The thing is, he doesn't get away a lot. He doesn't get away often. It's probably a couple of weeks a year total.
This is sort of an odd name to drop here, but Tommy Tuberville told me one time that as an SEC coach, and the time he was coaching at Auburn, that it's actually sort of hard to go on vacation down in the South, especially these Florida beaches, because these SEC coaches are obviously very recognizable faces, especially down there, where the lion's share of the people that are vacationing are SEC football fans. Not always as easy to do as you might think.
That's right. You remember when the Bowdens the Bowdens used to have a place, and I'm talking about Bobby Bowden and Terry Bowden and Tommy Bowden and all the Bowdens.
Yeah.
They were always at Panama City Beach. And, you couldn't get any more public than that. And people would see there would be Bowden spottings here, there, and everywhere. This when Florida State was rolling in college football. They were always down there. I know Kirby and Mary Beth, and I don't know whether their kids are with them. They were at one, as Aruba or one of those Caribbean islands earlier this year. But yeah, it's harder to get away. You're a recognizable figure, you know, and so you can't just go anywhere you want to go without maybe some extra security. And he's a beloved figure right now as well.
Maurice Carter, some kind words in our Facebook comment section. Appreciate that. Carlos Cardozo always says we're all kind of going through detox at this point for the season. And, you know, Chip is a guy who covers this for a living. For someone like me who's sort of both, you know, 1 foot in the fan world, 1 foot in the coverage world, there is that thing where I do sort of feel like, all right, can it hurry up and be, you know, if not September we start playing games, can we at least get to the end of July and start having some of these practices? Because that end of itself for this Georgia team is going to be fascinating, given the, you know, additional eyeballs on Justin Fields and the pecking order at running back and what might happen at left guard, what might happen at right tackle. You know, practice when it gets here, you know, into July, very beginning of August, it's going to be really fun.
Yeah, it is. And you know, it's funny you should say that since you missed the pre-show meeting that we were talking about. One of the things we want to talk about tonight was SEC Media Days are just around the corner. You know, so of course, over the years, that thing has gotten earlier and earlier and earlier. I was talking to Connor Riley about SEC Media Days earlier today. He's a guy that helps with producing the show. And was asking me about when I first went to SEC Media Days, and it almost embarrassed me to say that. I think my first SEC Media Days might have been 1988.
Wow. Now, you weren't one of the – I love this story. So
the Sky Riders. Yeah,
were you not one of the Sky Riders?
No, I came out. I think a lot of those guys are retired now.
So for those of you that don't know, there's a big event every summer called SEC Media Days. It's been in Hoover, Alabama for a long time. It's going to be in Atlanta this year, and it's all the coaches and all the dignitaries media-wise around the SEC all to get together in one place. And it's kind of a big spectacle. But years before there was an SEC Media Days, there were the quote, Sky Riders, where the riders would get on a plane and fly from one SEC school to the next.
That's right.
Which I got to imagine some crazy things.
Isn't that fascinating to think about? Rather than the coaches coming to all the media went to all the coaches, and they went to all the respective campuses. And, you know, the stories are just hilarious about that. You know, yes, there was some alcohol involved. And also, apparently, in different years, different incarnations of it, they were on a DC-10, you know, that may or may not have to go down an emergency landing somewhere.
So Cody Clark says, if y'all had Jeff there with you, this would be the best show to a date. Go Dogs. I think that somebody said, and I haven't seen him myself, but somebody said that Jeff Sintel is in the Facebook comment section. So we've actually got quite a... Now, I use
Weigh in for us, Jeff.
I use this phrase very loosely. We have quite a meeting the minds here between Chip Towers, me sort of glomming on Chip's show here for a change, and Jeff Sintel in the comment section. We've kind of got a lot going on. I'm also going to say this, and Chip, I'll be very honest with you here. I've had a pretty big issue with the Facebook comment section as of late, so I'm doing my best to try to keep up with everything that kind of rolls in here. And so I'll read you some comments. We'll chat about
this.
Good.
He's monitoring this. This way I won't be looking away from the cameras.
And we'll just have some fun here tonight on a Thursday night. By the way, all this made possible by Marco's Pizza. If we're sitting in this room and I'm talking pretty clearly, I'm going to tell you that Marco's right now got a great offer for you. Say hello, Primo, by taking advantage of 2 medium, 2-topping pizzas for just $6.99 each. Now, I'm not talking about just any pizza. I'm talking about authentic Italian pizza with the Gianmarco family sauce, that recipe for that, the 3 cheeses blended and melted together on the authentic Italian crust. If you haven't had Marco's Pizza before, you're going to love it. Go to marcos.com to find the Marco's nearest you and take advantage. 2 medium, 2-topping pizzas for just $6.99 each. Demetrius Isom in Facebook says, I dropped the ball again. I wonder what Demetrius means about that. Maybe he can explain that coming up here in just a moment. We also, Colt Gotti a moment ago asked about the rotation at wide receiver. I'm curious to get your thoughts on wide receiver because I think we know the first 3. I'm assuming you're going to say it's Godwin, McCole, and then obviously Riley Ridley, who kind of showed out in a big way in the national championship game. What happens sort of beyond that?
Well, I mean, that's a great question. I mean, I think they're still trying to figure that out. Now, there's a lot of possibilities there. There's a lot of guys they want to look at. I am really intrigued to see this new kid, Tommy Bush, who's coming in from Texas. You know, we're always, it seems like, focusing on the freshmen who just come in. But, you know, I happened to walk along with his group for a good long while down at Camp Sunshine last week. And he's listed at 6'5". He's every bit of it. You know, a lot of times you see a 6'5", and you go, hey, he might be a 6'4" guy or something like that. Now, he's very tall, very lean right now, and I'm sure they'll take care of that. But also, you know, what's interesting in these transition years like this is we tend to talk to freshmen and we tend to talk about the stars, but you forget about those guys who are already here. Guys like J.J. Holloman. I mean, I think Jeremiah Holloman, J.J., whatever you want to call him, I think he goes by J.J. primarily now. terrific player. Good size, got good hands. Who else? There's
well, the name I'm sort of curious about is you may have mentioned this, and I may just not have heard you. Trey Blunt last year played a good bit. The freshman a year ago from Pace Academy, he was on the field last season because of his physicality. He is a good blocking running back, or I should say wide receiver. I am curious to find out if he can add the dimension of. He was a 4-star prospect coming out of high school here. Can he add that extra dimension and become, I think a lot of your, brethren in the media would sometimes be, and I mean sports writers here, would sometimes be critical of Georgia and certain personnel. If you saw this tandem of wide receivers in the game, you knew Georgia was going to run it instead of throw it. But Blunt may be the kind of physical wide receiver, if he can add the dimension of also catching the football, that doesn't tip the plays off quite as much anymore.
Well, and I think you made a terrific observation there when you mentioned that when Trey Blunt comes on the field, Tyler Simmons may be to a similar degree, and then always Jason Stanley. We got to the point last year where you could sort of predict that when those guys got on the field, it was a running play. But you know what's also in common by all three of those players? All three of those guys are among the fastest players on the team. Jason Stanley, people, have criticized him for his hands, and he had an issue after the SEC championship game last year. But that guy can fly. And so when you're doing that, bringing those guys in on run-oriented plays, it's not just that you're tipping off the other team. You're tipping off the team to a certain degree. On one stance, you're saying, that's right, they're here to block you. Now let's see you get by that. But on the second thing, you fake that one time, and there's nobody who's going to catch Jason Stanley, Trey Blunt, or Tyler Simmons if they've got a head start.
O'Marion Bank in the comments section asking about the incoming freshman running back James Cook. We talked about him a bit today on a Dog Nation Daily in terms of the impact that he makes on the field, but there's also the question of, and I know that you've been very clear on this in the past, you like privacy for academic stuff when it comes to these incoming freshmen, but there's a lot of message board chatter about, Cook being a, late arrival, maybe not getting to UGA until July, something like that. I certainly haven't heard any reason for Georgia fans to be worried yet about Cook, despite the fact that maybe he didn't show up right when everybody else did.
So, those of us who weren't Rhodes Scholars tend to, we like to
trust me,
keep
I know how that goes.
Private. We don't digging into that stuff. But every indication I get, going back quite some time ago, was that A, it wasn't a great surprise that he wasn't here with the rest of them right away, and B, that he will be here eventually. Now, is that the fact of the matter as he has until fall semester begins to get here. So when that'll be exactly, I don't know. Is there been any latest intel? I haven't talked to Centel about it lately, but every indication is that James Cook is going to be here. And as your guest, you alluded to today on the National Writer about James Cook, there's a lot to like in this kid. I mean, never mind the pedigree and, his brother being Dalvin Cook and all that kind of stuff. He could really be a difference maker once he gets here. Now, the fact that he's here late, it does make a difference. Remember Notori Johnson last year? This is not that unusual for guys to have some stuff they have to get firmed up before they can get into school. But it makes a difference because those guys that are on campus right now, and they're on campus right now, and they are working as we speak. They're probably just now breaking off the field and getting in to get him a little bit of training table. He's missing all that. It makes a difference.
Octavius Oliver in the comment section also talking about James Cook. And Chip, I guess here's the only, level of skepticism I would express about Cook in terms of being a player and the impact he makes as a freshman. I hear the comparison sometimes to he and Sony Michel, and obviously if you're a Georgia fan, you hope that's exactly the way it works out, that Cook becomes another Sony Michel. He's certainly, as a high school prospect, rated highly enough that that's a reasonable consideration, but Sony Michel in 2015 rushed for nearly 1,300 yards. The comparison that people make with Cook to Michel, I think a lot of times is sort of based on the notion of, well, they're both speedy guys. They're both guys that can catch the football, that you could conceivably sort of line out wide in a slot receiver position if you needed to. And yet that's ignoring an element of Michel's game that was fully developed. He was plenty physical as a running back. And I do think that James Cook coming in, competing against Elijah Holyfield, competing against another freshman like Zamir White, to say nothing of Brian Harry, and to go along with DeAndre Swift, Cook's got to show me that physical component that Sony Michel had before it seems reasonable to compare him to Sony Michel as of yet. Now, I love James Cook as a future prospect, But I think it's fair to pump the brakes on the Sony Michel comparison just a bit.
No, I absolutely think it is. And actually, if you go back and look at Sony Michel in his first year, he wasn't a major impact player, right out of the gate, certainly of the ilk that we saw from Todd Gurley. And I think that's because of their physical stature. And again, just as I alluded to, James Cook getting here late makes a difference. It always amazes me the transformation that these players make, not only from at the end of their high school years till they get to Georgia, but from when they enroll in June and go into summer classes and start doing preseason training and conditioning, and they start eating the training table, and Georgia has all kinds of plan. If they want you to put on weight, you're going to eat a certain way. If they want you to take weight off, you're going to eat a certain way. They're going to do a certain workout to get the kind of body that they want from you. James Cook is missing all that, so he's not, whatever he is, he's not what he's going to become. And then, of course, the comparisons to Sony Michel have mainly to do with that distinction as the number 3 all-purpose back in America. I don't know which one of the services that gives him that distinction as opposed to Zamir White, who's number 1 overall running back in America. But it is a difference, and based on what he did in high school, his stats don't blow you away, from where he was playing, and he was transferring from another place, and all those things that have figured into his academic picture. But let's give James Cook a little bit of time.
Georgia boy Middleton said I sound different on this show than I sound on Dog Nation Daily. I think the thing is, Dog Nation Daily comes fairly early in the morning. By the time 6:30 rolls around, this is like, Chip and I did a whole bunch of videos earlier together. So at this point in time, I think that I may just be, listen, I'm a little punchy right now. There's really no telling what I might say. In addition to sounding a little different, I'm liable to say anything at this point.
That's why I'm so indebted to you for hanging around and playing with me on the Tower Stakes show.
Well, it's fun to do.
He's been here all day long, guys, and I appreciate him.
Well, let me hit a few of the comments here. Go Dogs on YouTube asking about Jay Hayes. Hayes is a guy that I'm really fascinated by, because I think Kirby Smart's really good about this. The analogy I always make is it's sort of like the fantasy football waiver wire. You have your draft, but the league is always won by the person that works the waiver wire the best. Kirby does that, man. He finds these guys that were available. He flipped Jay Hayes from Oklahoma. I think Hayes is an impact defensive lineman for Georgia this season, not because I'm a scout, not because I've crunched every piece of film that Hayes had from Notre Dame, but if you're good enough to play for Mike Elko last year, and Elko was a really good defensive coordinator, you're probably good enough to do something for Georgia this season.
And it depends on your definition of impact. But if your definition of impact is you're going to be on the field taking snaps right away, he's going to make an impact. If you think about it, that's what you're looking at. You talk about a true freshman coming in, you say, well, is he going to be an impact freshman? When I say that, I mean he's going to be on the field logging reps, every game. That's what you got in Jay Hayes, and he needs to have a huge impact. Now, the real interesting part to me on Jay Hayes is exactly how is he going to figure in. He looks big. He looks nice. That's a picture I took from that's up there now that I took during Camp Sunshine. He's bigger than I remembered him last year because he was a defensive end, and Notre Dame plays a different front. Notre Dame plays a true 4-3, a 4-man front, where at Georgia you play a 3-man front. So the question is he's going to have to play a little bit more inside than he did before. He's going to probably, I assume he'll be sharing reps with Tyler Clark over there, but I don't think there's any question. As much ball as this guy's played, he's a graduate, he's smart, he's big. He's going to come in and play a lot of ball for Georgia. And you go back and look at, Kirby's history, whether it be Mo Smith, who he gets to come over with him from Alabama, J.R. Reed, the transfer from Tulsa, who was supposed to be, coming here, just to lure D'Angelo Gibbs. Wow, how much better was he? And I think, even you talk about, think about Riley Ridley. Mm-hmm. That was a guy that, Georgia wasn't really talked about it in the lead or really much in the conversation for him. Kirby's first year, not only does he get him signed, he comes in as an early enrollee. And look at the impact he had as a freshman.
That's well said.
And so, he's pretty good at the old late acquisition.
Yeah, no question about
waiver wire.
To go back to an earlier topic, Matt Silvers in our Facebook comment section earlier asked about SEC Media Days being in Atlanta this year. Yeah, they're not in Hoover, Alabama. Had been there at the Winfrey Hotel for as long as I've been paying attention to the SEC, or at least that I can remember. They are at the College Football Hall of Fame this year, though.
Yeah.
A new location in Atlanta. That's where it is. And while most of the SEC Media Day stuff is sort of restricted to like credential media, there's always, at least back in the old Hoover, Alabama days, there were always a throng of fans who kind of gathered in the lobby.
Yeah.
They have sort of a velvet rope area where the fans can stand, and you get a pretty good glimpse of all the SEC coaches and players when they walk in. Some of them do sign some autographs. Some of them try to sort of sneak around the back and not spend a whole lot of time there in that sort of public view. But there is at least some opportunity for some fans, at least back at Hoover. I'm not sure how it'll be different in Atlanta, but there was some opportunity for some fans to get a look at some coaches.
Yeah, I'll have to talk to Chuck Dunlap and find out what exactly the plan is for the daily ingress and egress of the groups that are coming in. The team groups that are coming in, they have entourages that come in, and that was always a big deal, at the Winfrey Hotel in Hoover, where they would come through the main lobby, and certainly you'd always knew when it was Nick Saban and Alabama's turn, because they would pack the lobby of the Winfrey Hotel, and usually Saban would go through there and feel the love for a few minutes. The cool thing about this year's SEC Media Days, now the day before it gets started on Sunday, they're supposed to have a little fanfare deal down there.
That'll be nice.
And so they're involving the fans in that respect. And I would imagine if you're involving them on the front end like that, you'll have some plan for them on a day-to-day.
Terrence Eberhardt in the Facebook comments section asking about some new roles for some Georgia offensive coaches. Jim Chaney, still offensive coordinator, but I guess now sort of co-offensive coordinator coaching the tight ends. James Coley's the quarterback's coach now after coaching wide receivers a year ago. You bring in Cortez Hankton as the new wide receiver coach. What Terrence wants to know is these new roles, these new titles, is anything different about the actual distribution of, let's face it, power? Is Jim Chaney's power reduced based on the fact that Coley's got a new title?
Yeah, this is really an intriguing, it's a good question. It's an intriguing element that I'm eager to see play out in the fall. So two things here. It's a big deal, and it's a not that big of a deal. So it's a big deal from the transition because you're having to make a transition from last season, Brandon. I mean, you got think about it. Georgia's offense was pretty doggone good.
Yeah,
so
it was.
You really, in a perfect world, you wouldn't mess with any of that, But things happen. Shane Beamer leaves and goes, and James Coley was very seriously targeted by Jimbo Fisher in Texas A&M. So the fact of the matter, if you wanted him to stay here, and he wanted to stay here, James Coley wanted to stay here, then you had to do something for him. So that's the main reason he's co-offensive coordinator. And I'm sure he probably wanted to return to coaching quarterbacks, which was his natural position as well. So you're doing that. So that's a big deal in some ways. But in the other ways, it's not a big deal because still it's, no matter what anybody says, it's still Jim Chaney's offense. Jim Chaney is still in charge of coming up with the play script. He's still in charge of, calling the plays during the game. Now, James Coley will have his ears on. He can weigh in. But the way I understand it, he's going to be down on the field talking to the quarterbacks. When the quarterbacks come off, he's going to be having that conversation. What'd you see? And that kind of thing that you have to have with quarterbacks. But Jim Chaney's still going to be up in the box calling the plays. And so what Georgia's offense is and what it looks like in 2018 is still going to be largely up to Jim Chaney.
If you're just joining us and you wonder what in the world's going on, let me just explain here. You're watching Towers Take, presented by Marco's Pizza. This is Chip Towers.
Hello.
The guy you've come to expect here in this time slot. My name is Brandon Adams. I normally do Dog Nation Daily every morning here at Dog Nation. Chip, good enough to hang out with me here this evening, allow me to be a part of what he does each and every Thursday night. And of course, all of this, his show, my show, all made possible to you by Marco's Pizza, who reminds you to check out their great offer. This summer, it was raining last night. You don't want to cook. You don't want to get out. You want the food brought to you. Well, how about this offer when you say hello primo with Marco's Pizza? 2 medium, 2 topping pizzas for $6.99 each. Go to Marcos.com, find the Marcos closest to you, and you can enjoy some authentic Italian quality pizza at a great price, $6.99 each.
That's a steal. It really is.
It's a
it's
great
a lot
deal.
of food too.
And you've got basically a teenage son. I've got 2 young kids. When you got young mouths to feed, 2 medium, 2 topping pizzas for $6.99 each.
Well,
that's what you need to hear.
Especially
right
you get 2 different ones because he doesn't like all the stuff, the stuff on it like I do. So I get all the stuff on mine, and then he gets his bland one over there.
So I want to get back to the comments in a moment, but you're actually bringing up a subject that sort of irritates me a little bit here because my children are the same way. They don't want anything on their pizza, and the truth is, I don't really eat vegetables on mine. Mine's just a bunch of meat. But my son, who's a little bit more opinionated than my younger daughter, will say, "Daddy, I just want cheese pizza." So you get him the cheese pizza from Marco's.
Yeah.
And then I get
they have that triple cheese or whatever it is. I mean,
yes, the 3
they can
cheeses
cheese it
blended,
up, man.
melted together right there. It tastes great. But then I get like the sausage and the pepperoni to go on mine. And then when it gets here, he sees how mine looks, and all of a sudden he's eating mine.
Oh no!
Or like the one that my wife and I would be sharing, and so all of a sudden now there's not enough for me because he's sort of like double dipping. He's getting out of the cheese box and he's getting out of the sausage and pepperoni box. All of a sudden, there's not enough for the daddy here.
You want me to tell you a great solution to that?
Please.
Keep some pepperonis in the refrigerator.
That's a good idea.
This is one of the things that so when you get that thing and you just like, all right, suddenly I got me a pepperoni meat.
That is a good idea. Al Chandler asking about the construction for the West End Zone. I know you wrote a really interesting Towers take on that this week at DogNation.com. Now, I hope that everybody goes to DogNation.com and reads what you wrote about that. But for the people who maybe haven't had a chance to see that yet, is there any kind of West End Zone construction update that you can give us here?
Well, there is actually. It's interesting. Since I wrote that story, I actually heard from somebody who has been involved in the construction in some degree. And, this thing is expected to be completed in July, in the month of July. And, of course, you may have noticed we've had a little rain lately.
Right.
That always impacts things. But, by the 1st of August, this is going to be fully functional. And, the game doesn't, the first game's not till September 1st. Now, like any time when this is a $63 million project. It is supposed to be unbelievable. The reality of the inside and the technology involved in it, the recruiting lounge. This is a locker room, and the locker room is really, really cool, but there's a huge recruiting lounge in the middle of it. There's a lot of technology involved and all that. So all those kinks, they want all those kinks worked out, before you get to the first game. So by the time you get to the first game, everything's working like everybody wants. So they've got some time built in there.
It's also kind of worth pointing out here too that while the average fan will never go into the new Georgia locker room and may never get a chance to see the new recruiting facility, it's still going to impact the way that the average fan sort of sees games inside Sanford Stadium, because the team is actually going to enter the field, running on the field. It's going to come from the other end zone in 2018.
That's what's going to be so weird.
It's going to be a new change for a Sanford Stadium to see the team entering the field there from that side. And really, I don't live in Athens. You're there every day. Based on the artist renderings that I've seen, the look of the West End Zone is going to be a bit different now too. You're going to have a little bit of a steeper incline for the seats. At least my judgment seems to have me believe it's going to go, a little steeper with the rise up there, the opening there in the middle for the team to run out on. That West End Zone, in addition to also, I guess, a new video board, going to look a good bit different.
It's going to look a lot different. What you got to think about it, basically you're wedging a 2 or 3 story building, in between the grandstands and the bridge, and they are connecting to the bridge. And probably the biggest part, that's what was so fascinating to me when I went by there the other day, is they look like ants, the workers all over that bridge. That bridge has been there a long time, spanning the 2 hills that go over Tanyard Creek. People forget, a creek goes right down.
That's exactly right.
Completely, it is put into culvert and goes under and comes out on the other side. Tanyard Creek is a fairly significant creek. So all that was involved in the figuring out how to get that building built. And but the most interesting part about it is the bus is going to come like it always have. You'll have the dog walk like you always have, but instead
are they going to keep it the way it always was? Because I thought people liked the way that it was at G-Day, a little bit different route.
Yeah, no, I think they're going to come right in the gate 10 because the gate 10 in that parking lot, you have room for the red coat band and everything spread. Coming in that other way, you don't have the room to do that, and there's all that ingress and egress all over the bridge.
Sure. I realize that this is not consequential to you, but for a lot of fans, this is something they pay close attention to. The other thing about the G-Day dog walk was players are wearing their jerseys again. I don't know if that was like a G-Day only thing. I hear from, and I know this may sound to some people not the most important thing in the world, but I hear from a lot of families with young kids, when the kids see the players and they got the suits and ties on, they can't tell which one is which.
That's right.
But when you see the players in their uniform, they're a lot more aware of who the players are. Now, if Kirby Smart's watching right now, I know he must think that's the most unimportant thing in the world. And in the grand scheme of things, it probably is. But I do hear from some fans who sort of, they like the different route that the dog walk took for a G-Day. It kind of wound its way near the UGA bookstore on the other side of Tate Student Center a bit. And they like seeing the players in their jerseys. I
agree with it 100%. I hate that. I know what coaches are doing. A lot of them take this tack. It's Nick Saban. It's Kirby Smart now. It's been many others before and since who want their players in business attire. So we're going to work. We're going to business. But think about the reality of it. Is they're going up there to the Butts Mayor building. They're putting on their finest suit. They're coming riding a bus down, sweaty and everything, and going into a locker room and then changing again. I think it's a waste of time.
So can I blow your mind with this?
But now they got a $63 million locker room to dress.
Well, here's the other thing that's fascinating. Why is it that coaches come to stadiums in a suit, but then change into athletic clothes.
Yeah.
Whereas basketball coaches come to the gyms in athletic clothes and then change into a suit.
That's a great. These are great questions. This is why I love having you.
These are the
on
kinds
my
of
show.
topics that we
get to
only
these
explore on Tower Steak, presented by Marco's Pizza when I'm here.
No, it's a great question.
A couple other quick issues. Let's get ready to take some questions on, and then we'll get ready to wrap things up here tonight. Willie Gray asking about the start of summer practice. My understanding is we haven't heard the official start date on that, but it's generally like right there, either very last day of July or essentially the first day of August. Correct?
Yeah, it's actually I haven't looked at the calendar later. One of the great things or frustrating things about Kirby Smart is he waits to the last minute to let everybody know when everything is happening. So the last day of July is on a Tuesday, it looks like. Monday, Tuesday, yeah, July 31st. So the first day of August is on a Wednesday. I would suspect they'll do what they usually do is they come in on the weekend before. Kirby likes some orientation time.
Yeah.
They come in and get, they do all kinds of testing, medical testing, make sure that you're going to be fit to do all this kind of stuff. Generally, they go out, and I don't know, again, I don't know that this is what's going to happen, but this succession of things will happen, I'm sure of that. Then they will have sort of a practice, if that makes sense. They go out on the field one day, there's no media or anything involved, and so that's kind of a soft start. And then the next day, which generally is a Tuesday, they have a hard start where you'll have the preseason media day. We'll meet with a bunch of players and Kirby Smart in the afternoon. Then they'll go out on the field for real at 3 o'clock that afternoon. Bottom line, I think they have 28 practices they can get in the month before you get to the first game. And different coaches do different things about how they divide it up. You can't have too many in a row that are full pads and full contact. You have to have a certain number of days acclimation before you get into full pads, and that scenario will come down. But it'll be the first week of August generally.
All right, so we'll look forward to checking that out. Coverage of Dog Nation from Chip Towers and our brand new addition to the Dog Nation team, Mike Griffith, on that. Charles Kaiser also asking about Ben Cleveland.
I don't have my bell, Charles.
Is Cleveland one of the bell ringer guys?
Cleveland, I ring the bell. They love. That's why I get a lot of big.
Well, I think you're ringing the bell probably more a year or so ago.
Last year. That's where we started the bell.
At least you finally got some answers.
This year, the
that,
bell,
right?
I forget. It comes up, and I'm like, where's the bell?
Right, yeah. Fields would be a bell ringer. I've heard you talk about him before in that regard. And for a long time, Cleveland was.
Zamir White, how's his knee?
White's a big one.
That's a bell one. Yeah.
But I think at this point in time, Cleveland's essentially a solid guy at that right guard.
He's solid right guard. I mean, it's really amazing when you think about it. This is, guys, I got to tell you, I can't emphasize enough, and I'm going to write about that probably this week or next week. I'm going to take vacation next week, by the way, y'all. So I don't think we're going to have this for the first time all year next week. But I love Georgia's offensive line, and I think this is why Georgia's going to have success this season. And it's not just the offensive line that Georgia has there right now. What segued me to this is you talking about Ben Cleveland. Ben Cleveland now the pretty much undisputed starter at right guard, but at one point that was Solomon Kinley's position. Solomon Kinley didn't lose that position because he was playing bad. He lost that position because Ben Cleveland was getting so good. And this is what I think Georgia and Kirby Smart has done so well, and Sam Pittman. They have just recruited so many offensive linemen and so many high-level big guys. The size is markedly different. I mean, Georgia looks completely different coming off the bus. The group with Sam Pittman, they are huge. And not only are they huge, you can always recruit really, really big human beings to come play the position, but they're highly sought after. I mean, Jamari Sawyer, where does he figure into this? Trey Hill, where does he figure? Cade Mays, everybody's forgotten completely about guys like Notori Johnson. You remember last year? I mean, before he had his delayed enrollment, I mean, everybody was just sure he was going to come in and start at one of the guard positions. And hey, never mind, Kendall Baker is still there, a senior who has how many games under his belt. So I just love Georgia's offensive line, not just because of the 5 guys that we all have penciled in right now as the starters, but because of the whole of 15, 16, 17 of these guys, and Sam Pittman out front of them deciding who's going to play where.
Another one of those bell ringer guys, and we'll get ready to finish up with this. Greg Aspinwall asking about Nate McBride at linebacker.
Oh,
that's a bell ringer.
I need a Nate Bell.
Yeah, he's clearly one of the most popular guys in our comment section. Assuming that Nate Patrick is back and playing, and obviously Monty Rice, a guy people have big expectations for, how does, and not to say nothing of freshmen like Channing Tindall, maybe even Quay Walker, How does Nate McBride fit into that?
Well, I mean, I think he fits in. The bottom line, though, is from what we saw in the spring, he was given every opportunity to compete with Monty Rice and Juwan Taylor, just like those other guys, and he wasn't getting the majority of the reps with the first and second units. Now, look, I'm not breaking down the film and watch it. We only get a very compressed period, but I get asked about Nate all the time. Why isn't he figuring out? I mean, well, because the other guys are playing better. I mean, there's
just a lot of good players.
There's a lot of good players there. Now, that is not to say that Nate McBride is not, or it will never be what everybody thinks Nate McBride can be. I mean, this is a guy, he played, I think he was one of only a few guys that played in every game last year as a true freshman. He's on every special teams. And that's your first indication that, yeah, they like him. I mean, the kid's fast and he's big. So that meshes very, very well on special teams right now. But that doesn't mean he's going to be relegated to special teams his entire career. He could end up being the starter before it's all said and done. But right now, that very much looks like Monty Rice's position to lose.
That is Chip Towers. My name is Brandon Adams. I'd love to have you see me tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. for Dog Nation Daily Live. We're also presented by Marco's Pizza. I hope you read everything that Chip Towers got coming down your way at dognation.com. He'll be back very soon for another episode of Towers Take, presented by Marco's Pizza. As I said, I'll be back with you tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Thanks for your support of both Marco's Pizza, dognation.com, what we're doing on Dog Nation Daily. Y'all make it a lot of fun to talk some Georgia with you each and every week. I certainly appreciate that. Chip, thanks for letting me hang out with you here today as well.
It sounds just like my show, doesn't it, guys? It's just the same way. Thanks a lot for hanging out with me.
Yeah, Chip, it's good to see you, and I'll look forward to seeing you all very soon as well.